Hello, Internet. Hello, Mags. And hello, Axel. I was told this is Axel. I will be smushing Axel's face at my earliest convenience. Looks like a very cool dog. I have two dogs as well, but my dogs are both rescues, and they will very much not ever be frisbee dogs. And they probably wouldn't. Oh, they are leashed to the thing. Okay, but my dogs wouldn't ever do that. I don't think. Anyways, I'm jealous. So thanks for letting me do a review for you. So overarching ideas, we're going to look at footwork. We're going to look at stance. I can go over how to film in a way that will be most productive for coaches as well, because you had asked about that. And then the biggest upper body thing we're going to look at is how to make your arm do more of the things we wanted to do for disc golf, which is very counterintuitive, but we've got a pretty simple method for it now that I think will get you some extra power, consistency, and distance. So let's jump in. I'm going to grab your other video and we can get started. Okay, so here's your other clip. This is filmed from a quartering angle, so it's 45 degrees between beside you and behind you. So that's fine for a reference angle, and it absolutely suits our purposes here. But as you get better and want a more technical eye on your throws, two views are going to be most useful to someone who's coaching. One will be this filmed from behind you, so I'm throwing that way, and that lets me see where your legs are, where your knees go, and what plane your throw happens on. So like if you start here and then stand up and end up here, I can see that discrepancy. And what we want is everything to be on one consistent plane the whole time. The other view will be a side view, side on from the T-pad. So we're referencing the T-pad. Back view, back of the T-pad. Side view, side of the T-pad. So just square onto your chest. And that lets you see what the disc is doing better. So I can see if you're throwing a dead flat shot, I want to see this edge of the disc the whole time. If you're throwing a hyzer, I want to see this. If you're throwing an anhyzer, I might want to see this, and I can see what you're doing with the disc from here to here to here. Hint, this doesn't really work. We kind of want to go from here to here to here. Thank you, Neil from Stepwise Disc Golf, for that cue. We'll go over that. That's your arm thing. Teaser. But here, so we have a good athletic A-frame stance. That's great. Good posture. Spine is upright. Holding the disc out to 12 o'clock, I assume, which is very much intuitive, but kind of not actually what we want to do. It's fine to sight like that, like everyone in the world does it. But you actually want the disc to rip out of your hand here. So if we're doing a clock face, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10:30, that's actually where you want the disc to come out. If you think about if you had a tennis ball on a string and you're swinging it around your head, you can do a demo for this. You have a tennis ball on a string, you're swinging it around. If you want it to go forward, you have to let go of it when it's dead sideways, because that's where the tangent of that circle is going forward. So the disc ends up being kind of the same. It's not on a string, so I don't want to let go of it here 90 degrees before my target line, but I want to let go of it. I don't want to let go of it. I want it to be forced to rip out of my hand because of the acceleration of the disc. Disc is actually going to pivot around your fingers like that. I want that to happen here 45 degrees before my target line, because the disc is going to do that sling thing just like a tennis ball on a string would do, but it doesn't do all of it. It does about half of it. So I want this to stop. Language is so difficult. I don't actually want anything to stop here, but I want the apex of my swing to be there. When my arm gets as straight as it's going to, I want that to happen at 45 degrees before my target line, because that's what will make the disc rip out. That's not really something you need to worry about yet, but I do want you to be aware of that, because we don't actually want to throw towards 12 o'clock, because then you don't get that finger pivot, which is where a lot of the magic happens in this sport. So again, not something you need to worry about a ton right now. Just be aware of it for the future. Okay, so enough of that. Let's take a look at your throw. I'm gonna mute this because the audio is really loud. And I'm gonna kind of click pause to get pseudo slow motion here. Actually gonna slow you down because that'll work better. Also, pro tip for heavy-handed coaching, as I am wont to do, if you are able to post your video on YouTube or Google Drive, those will both give you access to a player where your coach will have access to frame by frame and slow-mo, which is better than this Facebook player. But this totally works for today. So we see some weight shift into the back leg, some loading of the posterior chain on the back leg. That is excellent athletic stuff. Reach back is going a little bit further than straight behind you, which I happen to think is okay, but everyone on the internet will tell you is wrong. You don't need to listen to them. I give you complete and total permission to tell them to shush politely. Okay, so now you start shifting your weight forward. Your reach back is done. A little bit of lean back in the spine. That's totally fine. Here, apparently, you turn into a wizard because you have made the disc appear in two places at once. That's just a thing that happens. I see it on YouTube. I haven't seen it that much on Facebook. It's called frame blurring, so maybe your recording device just did it. I don't know, but it makes it difficult. So this is where we see the first problem. That disc position is not really going to work very well because it's very much nose up. As that continues to rotate forward, the front side of the disc is higher than the back side of the disc, which means the disc is generally going to go up. So that's going to be something we're going to want to address. The way we're going to address it is complicated, annoyingly so, because human physiology is also annoyingly complicated. But you're going to want your forearm to rotate that way more so that the front edge of the disc goes down and the back edge of the disc comes up. And step one is we're just going to try to get to neutral. We're not really going to try to be nose down. We're just going to try to get to neutral. Why this is complicated is, as someone with a human body, you can also do that rotation from your shoulder joint. So you can flip your wrist over or your forearm over, anatomically, technically speaking, but you can also do that rotation from your shoulder. So just let that sink in. We'll come back to that. But first, let's address the feet. So your spine is upright and your feet are in an A-frame. Those are both good things. Other good things we can do is we can stagger the feet. So your feet are pretty much in line, toes are in line to the target, heels are in line to the target. What we want to do is we want to move this foot forward to where it's maybe there, and then leave this foot where it is, or move it back relatively, it doesn't matter. But you want your toes to kind of sort of be in line with your heels. How much offset you want is going to depend on your unique physiology and how aggressive or not aggressive you want to get with your footwork. But something like that is what we're looking for. And what that'll allow for is it'll allow you to tilt your spine a little bit and then have your back leg kind of sort of more in line with your spine. So let me demo that on a body for you. So if I'm throwing, I'm going to be right-handed and I'm going to throw at the camera. So I don't really want to be here where my toes are in line, because that makes my spine want to be upright. I don't want to have a hyzer lean and have my legs like this, because if I do, when I go to make an aggressive athletic motion, watch what happens to my spine angle. It autocorrects so that my computer is above my feet because I'm stable here. I'm not stable here. I'm more likely to fall and hurt my computer. And our brains are really good at protecting us from that happening. So if I want to throw on a hyzer, which I do because my hip mechanics work better on a hyzer, we can get into that later if you want to. This doesn't work. I can't put power here and stay on my hyzer angle because I want to have consistency in my spine throughout the whole power portion of the throw while I'm generating power until the hit point and the disc rips out of my hand. So the way that I start almost everyone that I work with is rebuilding some fundamentals by starting from a one leg framework, which is here. So my spine and my rear leg are already in line, so I'm already in balance as far as my brain is concerned. So I can be here, do an explosive motion, and watch what happens. I'm still in balance, and I'm still on that same hyzer angle. So that works because I have a counterweight now. So this staggered stance allows you to get some of that counterweight. And if you throw really aggressively from here, what's going to happen is your leg is going to drift that way to where you're in the same stance that I have people start in a one leg. So if you're interested in that approach, there are videos on my channel for one leg drills and understanding all that stuff. There's a lot of videos about that. So I can get you a link to the one that I would suggest the most if you want to go that route. But at least we're going to want to add some stagger so that you don't have to be completely upright in your spine. You can get leaned over a little bit more. This will also make more room for the disc. Like here, there's more room versus here. So that's a good thing. Okay, so footwork, hyzer lean, one leg drills if you want to go that route. Now let's talk about the arm a little bit. So, for context, I can show you what you're doing again. So here's your sighting, coming back to your reach back. Okay, so things to note. As you reach back, your elbow is very low. Your upper arm is pretty well vertical. It's parallel to your spine. And your forearm is horizontal and at, mid chest height. And then as you reach back, you get back to where everything is on this shoulder level plane again. Your elbow is still oriented the same way it was. That always happens. And then as you come forward, your elbow is going to go right back to where it was. So because your elbow is oriented the same way, as your elbow bends, the elbow joint goes down. And then you turn into a wizard again. There we go. So now your upper arm is relatively vertical again. Forearm stays horizontal and your shoulder plane is up here. So we kind of want your elbow to not necessarily stay completely on that shoulder plane, but we want it to be a lot closer. So if we split the difference from where it is to where your shoulder plane is, we want it to be at least halfway, probably a little bit higher. And that's really complicated, so I'm going to show you how that works on a person. So you come through this position on your way to your reach back. That means you're going to have your elbow in this orientation. If you leave your elbow in this orientation, this is neutral or somewhat externally rotated. If you go to internally rotated and turn your palm down, now your elbow is going to bend this way. This is more productive if we're trying to throw a frisbee that way, because now our elbow can hinge on that shoulder plane, on the plane that we're rotating on, and this helps me throw something. If my elbow is set to bend this way, that doesn't really help me throw something forward unless I'm throwing it completely underhand. So your swing plane needs to match your elbow bend plane, for lack of a better term. So how do we get there? You're starting here, which is fine. That is the start position that everyone ends up in. But then as your shoulders start to rotate forward and your elbow starts to bend, your elbow goes down because it's oriented that way. So what I want you to get used to, and this is weird, this is counterintuitive, this is a complexity of throwing a round wing rather than throwing anything else. Like, this is a really weird thing to throw. We didn't evolve to understand how to throw these. extra evolutionary thing. So I'm going to be here, I'm going to be palm up. As I get to this position, I actually want my elbow up here, which now this is an internally rotated position. So this is external rotation as my palm is turning towards palm up. As my palm turns towards palm down, this is internally rotated. So here I want to internally rotate it. My hand doesn't really matter. I can be supinated or pronated, external or internal, in my forearm, separate from what my shoulder joint is doing. So what we really care about is the shoulder joint. The shoulder joint can go external or internal. So here you're in external. And then as you get to your center position, you want to be in internal. That's what will make this go up. So you can, there's a handful of ways to play with this, but one of the simplest ones that has a disc in your hand is you're going to hang the disc this way. So the stamp, the printed stamp, is going to point that way. This is wrong, sorry. The stamp is going to point up. And then as you come to your center position, the stamp is going to point at your chest. Note, this rotates the elbow from here to there, where the elbow is more likely to stay up in your center position. And then as you go forward, you're going to rotate to disc up again, which is going to get your elbow back to this neutral-ish to externally rotated position. So essentially we're going from externally rotated to internally rotated to externally rotated. Why is it so complicated? Because we're humans and we have a very strangely designed thing. So when people throw a baseball, they go from external rotation to internal rotation to follow through. So we're doing a backhand, so we actually want to do the opposite and roll from internal to external. Because we're throwing sideways, we get this external to internal to external thing going on. So ways you can do with that, play with that, is this: stamp up, stamp in, elbow still up, stamp up. So up, in, up. That will work as a thought experiment here, where I'm just going through the motions. The most important part is that I'm not doing this. I'm avoiding this elbow down position, and I'm raising the elbow, obviously, but I'm also internally rotating. That's the key. So you have momentum in terms of shoulder rotation going into your center position. That's the key. That's what will help keep this actually up and stop it from going down there. And then that is what matters, how high the elbow is. Why that matters is if I throw here, my axis of rotation is my spine. I'm going to spin around my spine. If this bone of my humerus is parallel with my spine, it's not really acting as a lever. My only leverage is from my spine to my elbow, and it's like 6 inches. If I put this elbow up here on the shoulder plane, now the length from my spine to my elbow is like a foot. And then if I take my shoulder and I protract it, I round my shoulder forward, I can get an extra 4 to 6 inches. So I want this lever to be as long as it can, because you can just see if I throw here, there's not going to be a whole lot of power. But if I can get here, boom, then there's a lot of power. And if I can extend my shoulder into protraction and throw from there, I'm going to get even more power because my lever is longer. Basically using a longer baseball bat. So that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at this, getting this hand mode. So this is not super functional. You're not going to be able to do this at high speed. What's going to happen at high speed is you're going to lose the ability to rotate your wrist because you don't have time to do this when you're throwing 70 miles an hour, for example. But like I said before, the wrist or the forearm rotation doesn't really matter. So you can keep the disc here the whole time, but still have the elbow rotate. So my elbow is hinging this way. I'm not really moving the wrist, but when I get here, my elbow is now hinging this way. So it goes from elbow crease up to elbow crease in. That's the important part. Then how this works will kind of just take care of itself. You don't want to keep the elbow exactly on the same orientation and get here, because it is possible that you will hyperextend your elbow. If you roll over a little bit, then your elbow can't hyperextend and you're totally safe. Your body will probably just take care of that on its own. But another thing to be aware of for future tripping purposes, you will want to have a little bit of roll to get to a nose down position, but that's a thing to worry about later. Just file that away for once I'm dealing with nose up issues. Rolling the wrist and the shoulder joint over relative to where your hip point is. Remember that 45 degrees before your target line thing. That'll all come into play later. Anyways, the second way to conceptualize this elbow up at center position thing is to put one hand here, go to your reach back position, put your palm up, and then you're going to come to your center position, slap your hand down, elbow up, and then go back to palm up. So up, down, up. And you can actually hit your hand. And then when you get to where you're doing it a little bit faster, you'll take your hand away, but you're still doing the same motion. So you want it at first, make it controlled. And then later you'll want to be able to do it and flow through it, but still hit those positions. So up, down, up. And you want to get to where you can do that and have your arm just kind of flop around like a rag doll. But make sure it's getting to that elbow up, palm down position, and then getting back to a palm up position. So up, down, up. And then when you do that with a disc, your palm isn't really going to move, but the elbow is still going to go from crease up to crease in to crease up. I think that's all you need. That is a lot of drinking from a fire hose for 20 minutes. So please ask questions if any of that is not clear. Please give your dog a hug for me, and best of luck to you. I think those changes, stagger, little bit of hyzer lean, and getting your elbow up and internally rotated at your center position are really going to up your distance and your consistency a lot. So good luck. Ask questions. Hope it works out. See ya.